Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for Career Talk Friday with Dr. Alice, a research scientist at the Barts Cancer Institute. Please do use the Q&A to ask any questions which Alice will answer at the end. So I'll hand over now to you, Alice. Take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosie. Thank you everybody for coming today. I'm sorry that it's not live, as in I'm right in front of you, but I'm hoping that this will give you a nice flavor and an idea of what it's like to be a research scientist. So my official job title is a postdoctoral research scientist, and we'll go into that a little later. So we'll start by talking about who I am. I am a postdoctoral research scientist. What that means is that I'm a researcher who's completed a PhD. I'm someone who can be employed by a university, a research institute, or a business. It's quite often seen as a step after your PhD to before you become a lecturer. I'm not only defined by my job, I'm also a mum, and this is me with my son, and I'm a full-time working mum, and I'm also very proud of that. So these are the little steps about who I am. To be able to get where I am today, there's a couple of levels of study. There's no shortcuts about this in a way. So I did my A-levels in biology, chemistry, and maths, and then I went to study straight away a BSc, a Bachelor of Science, which is biochemistry with biotechnology at the University of Birmingham. After that, I spent a little bit of time working as a research assistant to explore what I wanted to do, and I'm happy to talk about that bit again later. But because I already had research experience, when I applied to do a PhD, I was accepted immediately, and I was very fortunate enough to finish my PhD at Oxford, and I got my DPhil for that. A little bit about the kind of things you would do as a scientist. So what have I done before? These are a couple of projects that I've been very fortunate enough to have been working with, and it's just a flavor of the different types of sciences. I haven't stuck to one topic or research topic as such. I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to pursue lots of different research interests and have a quite broad depth of understanding of lots of different things in science, but they all kind of fit together because biology works remarkably similar across lots of different organisms. When I finished my degree, I worked in a research lab, in a cancer research lab, where I learned, where I used different molecular pathology techniques. So I worked with human tissue, I did some staining with immunohistochemistry, and we found out that there was a high frequency of germinal center derivation in diffuse large B-cell lymphoma from Asian patients. So this was completed at a university in Malaysia. That's where I'm from. That's where I grew up, and that's where I went back to work when I finished my degree. After that, I came back to Oxford to do my PhD, which was super interesting to me at that time, and it was about innate immunity. And in this PhD, I studied using Drosophila, which is the fruit fly, because they have only an innate immune system and not an adaptive immune system. So they have a very basic immune system that keeps them healthy against lots of different types of infections. And we use that, we leverage the fact that they only have an innate immune system. And for there, we find out that there is toll-dependent antimicrobial responses, and they require a specific protein called spatula, which is secreted by the blood cells, which are called the hemocytes in Drosophila, and this is some of the work that I did. I enjoyed very much working with model organisms, so then I decided to explore a different model organism, and here I started studying the zebrafish. The zebrafish is a fantastic model organism. It's very easy to rear. It's very useful. You can make it transparent. You can see here the pictures of some transparent zebrafish embryos, and it has lots of similarities to human disease processes. And from here, we modeled how dietary cholesterol can induce an inflammation response if there is already a present intestinal inflammation. So this was us trying to model sort of heart disease in zebrafish so that we would be able to study how or what sort of conditions would cause people to be more susceptible to different types of atherosclerotic plaques. After that, I went back to, I found another post where somebody gave me the wonderful opportunity to study cancer in humans. And then I've been working ever since in that because I've decided to stick to that now. So the very first thing that we looked at here was looking at a new type of drug. So here it was the PI3K inhibitor pictolisib, which is a novel therapy, and then plus anastrozole, which is a standard of care therapy. And in women with specific types of breast cancer, here is estrogen receptor positive breast cancer. They respond really well in this treatment. So with this project, I was able to use to learn about different types of drug therapies. I was able to use patient samples, and I was able to do lots of science in there as well. What do I do now? So the thing about being a research scientist, as you can gather, is that you don't do the same job. You don't list and do the same things over. You get involved in projects, and projects move on either as something else, or you can move to a different project. And I think that's one of the most interesting and exciting bits for me. What do I do now? I have a research project that investigates how to detect residual breast cancers in women. So we've been working on this for a little while. We recruited this first level, we recruited a number of different types of patients, and here we were able to across a whole different range of hospitals. And then here we're able to use different types of methods to study what the cancer is and how it affects all the different women. Here we use the tissue from the women, and we use different types of techniques. And then we also investigated a lot. We use a new technique from the plasma, which is the blood samples, to try and detect residual DNA and see from there to detect whether the tumor was still present. So that's what I do now. Why am I still a research scientist, or why would you want to be a research scientist? It's kind of an unusual position. Lots of people do PhDs but don't continue further on in research. It's normally seen as a stepping stone to being an academic. I think for me, the main reason why I'm still doing it is that I get to work in exciting and new research areas. The thing I enjoy is I get to learn new skills. So the things that I've learned in this project that I'm working on now, I would be able to learn new things that I haven't yet learned before, even from prior to my PhD, and then that I'm still would be so for an example, I would say that I am now learning how to code, and I've never needed to learn how to code before, but the project I'm working in now is quite in-depth and requires me to learn a little bit of coding. So I think that's something that's really exciting. You get to refresh your skills and move forward. The other thing that I really enjoy is that I also get to teach other students in the lab and other research degrees. So we get a chance to mentor, to help to talk to other people. I particularly enjoy this part of my job. I get to speak to students and to explain why it's important to do research in science, because research actually affects everything you do in life. And I think, especially in the last year, lots of people have understood that actually things happen because there are scientists working on it. There are people who are considering all aspects and doing experiments and working hard and trying to figure out how to make stuff work. And it's really exciting to be able to introduce people to things that are sometimes slightly hidden because we're not front and center. We're not there treating you for your disease, but we're there learning and understanding how your disease works and how we can prepare all sorts of therapies, or how to find out whether the therapy is working for you. The one thing you might have noticed is that I am not British, but I work here and I live here now. The other thing that we can say is that you get a chance to work internationally. People who do a PhD are incredibly highly skilled, to the point where they sometimes are the only people in the world who can do a certain specific technique or a specific type of research, and therefore they're very therefore it's important for us to be able to attract the right and the specialist skills for them there. And it's fun because most people don't realize that you could be a scientist and work anywhere in the world, because a lot of people expect those jobs to be reserved for other things, like being a pilot or being part of the diplomatic service. But you could also work your way around the world as a scientist, and that's quite fun. There are, as with every job, I don't think it's something that that there are always benefits and disadvantages, challenges that you need to face when you do a job. The main aspect of being a research scientist is security of employment. It works both ways. So most of the jobs are on projects, and often you're on what we call short fixed term contracts, which is 3 years. It doesn't feel very short when you're working in it until you get to the end, but there is it makes people feel quite anxious sometimes if they know they've not got a permanent job, because you're always chasing after your next job. But it does, the system does work in that, because of the way it's done in the UK, we publish the best quality research, the best value for money quality research compared to lots of other different places. So this sort of gets the best people working the hardest and produces really amazing research. I know I said this, that you can be the most specialist person in the world and you will be the one person that everybody will chase for you to work for this job, but sometimes it does feel like you're the only person in the world doing this job, and it's also a disadvantage in a way, because sometimes you feel like, you know, an overwhelming sense of being the only person available for that. The other thing I have to say is this is often thought of as a stepping stone. It's kind of the fun part of your life. There are changes afoot happening across different research institutions and different committee members to develop some sort of mentoring system in place, so that there are some senior researchers always available to people, because sometimes there's a disconnect. So it is often and most frequently used as a stepping stone towards another career. So a general route would be, nowadays you would do your A-levels, do your degree, you would sometimes do a master's depending on how much lab experience you had, and then you would then do a PhD and then a postdoc, and then you do a career job or an academic job. Some people do a number of postdocs. I've been really fortunate enough that I get to do a postdoc for this amount of time, because I was involved in a long-term project. What do you need to be to do this job? I would say the best thing is you would need to have a curious mind. There's always a solution to a problem. You kind of just have to sit down and think about it and get into the mode of trying to fix and solve the problem. And that's the next step, which is you have to enjoy solving problems. You need good time management and organizational skills, because nowadays projects are quite big. You have to work with people from around the world. You have to negotiate lots of different things. It's important to be able to work independently and in a team. So you'll be responsible for your own part of the project, but the part that you're responsible with needs to integrate with other people that you work with in your lab. You need to have strong communication skills. So it's good that you're able to sit down and talk to somebody, to sell the work that you do, for people to realize how important science is, and to be able for people to say, oh, you're amazing at this, have another job. And tenacity and patience. So science isn't going to be as simple as you go into the lab, you run some experiments and it works and you get your amazing results. If only it was like in the TV shows where you go in and you put something in a machine and it spits out this most amazing result and everything fits in beautifully, and it's not quite like that. There are lots of occasions where things that you achieve perplex you, and you need to spend a bit of time to sit down and consider what your next steps are going to be, or what the results tell you that might change your point of view of what you're expecting, your expectations are. I think that's also really an important skill that you get when you are a scientist. The one thing I have to say that is really important here is that you need work experience. It sounds really hard and really difficult to get into, but you do need to be able to get yourself some sort of experience so that you can understand what it's like to show your to show how much you want to do it. It's really competitive nowadays, and people who come to see us, you know, and asked to do lab work, we always ask what previous experience they had. But obviously I understand that if you've never had a chance to experience something before, you're never going to, if everybody demands experience before they give you more experience, then it's impossible. But there are lots of different ways to get this. There are work placements with the Nuffield Foundation. They a lot of this is paused right now due to the pandemic, but I'm hopeful that they will restart, because they're really important for people to be able to come and see a world which is quite different to what they get the idea of. You can get work placement with the Nuffield Foundation. The Barts Cancer Institute, where I work, runs a STARS program, which is where students from different socioeconomic backgrounds will be able to apply and be given a place. I would chase as many placements as possible during your degree, and then do what I did, which is, if it's not something that your family can afford, and if it's not something that your family believes it's worth pursuing, then do a research technician job, even if it's something like helping in the school science lab, just to show that you understand the processes and the depth of knowledge that you need to sometimes do a job like this. I think the more experience you have, the easier it is to be able to get into this career. I think I was only going to be very short. I'm happy to answer questions about getting into science. I'm happy to answer questions about being a cancer biologist. I'm happy to answer questions about how to fit everything in. So let's see what we've got, if that's easier. I hope that was clear. If there's anything that's not clear, please also pop your questions in the Q&A, and then I will answer them as we get along.
Thank you, Alice. We've got 2 questions already, so I shall start with the first one. Once you start in a particular research area, how easy is it to move to different areas?
It depends how different they are. So all the stuff I've done has been in biology and in signaling. So it's about how cells talk to each other. So I have that skill in that I understand a lot about signaling mechanisms. I understand all the different levels that are required for cells to talk and what pathways work between them. If I was applying to a job now that asked me to classify different species of butterflies, I would not get it. So it is easy to move from one type of project to another, but you have to be able to prove to them that your skills that you have are suitable enough for you to accomplish that project. So I wouldn't say that you could get a data scientist in to do the project that I've done, even though there's lots of coding involved, because you also need to understand a lot about the different types of cancer tumors and the different types of material that's available and how to maximize use of that material. So it's possible. You're not stuck. So don't feel that if you pick a research area, you have to do that forever. You get a choice. You can move. I mean, I've moved around. I've done what feels to a lot of people superficially, when you look at the amount of research I've done, which is why I put it there in the beginning, is that it feels like I've done everything that's completely separate and different, but they all match in that I can talk about how cells talk to each other, and that's my skill. That's my important skill.
Great, thank you. We've got a question about coding here. In the future, how important will it be that you already know how to code before you graduate?
So that's quite difficult. So I understand that that's kind of a big push for everybody now to learn about coding. I think in context there, lots of people prepare different softwares for different aspects, for different questions that you might want to answer. So you may not need to learn how to code. There are lots of people who are very accomplished professors who have no idea about coding. So it depends on the research question that you want to do. If I was a year 9, year 10 student now, I probably would want to know a little bit, even just briefly how to sort data and understand how data works, because I think that is the future, is how much data we have from all the different experiments that we've done so far. So especially with the current projects that we're all supporting now, we are achieving vast quantities of data that have only been literally sieved at, and we haven't yet figured out all the interactions and all the data, and there's a great potential there that is probably coming forward.
Right, thank you. We've got here, would you consider work in an industrial lab such as a brewery or dairy as relevant lab experience?
Yes, absolutely. I think that is fabulous if you get a chance to go in there. They're actually quite difficult to get into because of the processes that are there. You would be more sort of doing sort of a quality control, quality assurance type experience when you're in there, but just being able to understand and show that you know what to do in a lab, as in you understand the rules are when you're in a lab situation, because it's not just walking in and doing what you want to do. Yes.
Right, thank you. And is it necessary to do A levels or do BTech work to get into university for this line of work?
So no, it's not necessary to do A levels. I think there are even now BTechs are fine, as long as, I think there are multiple different routes of applications to university now. I'm sorry I didn't make that clear before, and I apologize if you're doing not A levels and doing something else. There are multiple routes of entry to universities now, including work experience, and I think any of those are just as valid as A levels. I think A levels are the more traditional route and marginally quicker, but it doesn't mean that you need to do it in the quickest way possible. I took 18 months between my degree and my PhD, which then made me older than everybody else in my PhD cohort. But it meant that I was actually more certain of what I was going to do when I was doing my PhD. So choose the route that you feel the most comfortable with, and don't feel like you have to be pushed into doing something because people say that's the only route possible. So you don't even, so you can do apprenticeships now, I'm pretty sure, at lots of different places, BTECs, and also I think there are the new T levels. I'm not sure how they equate yet, but they've also just been released.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, we've got a T levels video on our British Science Week timetable, so I can forward that to people as well, because that's about healthcare, so that might lead on some interesting knowledge about the new T levels. James has also just put in the chat the applications are open for Nuffield, because you mentioned Nuffield. So he's posted that.
Please do the Nuffield. It's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity, and if you get the opportunity for it, we really enjoy students who do the Nuffield placements, because it shows you're so excited to come and do science, and we love it. And we also love showing people what we do. So don't be afraid. We're not scary. I'm here, and I'm just like anybody else you would know. I'm just like your teacher at school. So we're not scary people at all. So please come and please apply. Please join.
Great, that's good enthusiasm there. And we've also had a response about the coding. Someone has said, I think it's important to realise there is often a team and you may well have to have access to bioinformation. Coding knowledge is useful but not essential.
Absolutely. I worked very closely with a bioinformatician. I absolutely understand that. That's why it's important to work together and in a team. Me learning how to code is independent, because I was like, I could ask him to do it, or I could learn how to do it and therefore be able to then run with my own ideas. So not everything is essential. I think a lot of it is down to how much you want to do of something for you to learn how to do it. And I think that's important here, is your self-motivation for getting to where you want to be.
Great stuff, thank you. And have you always been interested in STEM subjects?
Yes. I think I've always interested in how stuff works. I think trying to figure out and not just accepting what things are just because. I'm very lucky. My parents never replied to me just because. I think a lot of people say that because it's an easy answer. I get that. I've got a 5-year-old. He asks a lot of questions and it's so easy just to say just because. And I think being given the opportunity to explore ideas and to want to figure out how things work made me more interested in trying to solve the more difficult problems in the world, which is in STEM subjects.
Great, thank you. And what would you say to somebody who didn't know what they wanted to do at this point in their life, but they had kind of an idea? Would you give them any advice?
Explore. I think it's hard. So when you are 15, you're expected to pick subjects that people think, right, this is what you're going to do for your life now. And in a way, for me, it was easy because I already knew what I wanted, I wanted to explore lots of different things. And if you don't, then pick subjects that interest you, pick things that you find the most interesting to study. It doesn't matter if they're not the usual combination. It doesn't matter if people go, why are you doing this and this together in combination? Because the thing is, when you study something that interests you, you will do better in that. And then from there, you'll be able to explore and find the things that you want to do. Don't feel pushed by people asking you or telling you that you've got to do all the sciences and when you want to do art as well, because it doesn't matter, because when you're interested, you do better.
Great stuff, thank you. I think that's really useful. It's definitely good to do something you're interested in. I think that's really valuable. I have put the link for Ask an Ambassador, the email address, in case anyone thinks of any questions after the talk today that they can forward on to us that we could ask you. I think you've covered some really interesting topics here and answered lots of great questions. So if no one's got any more questions and they want to send them in after, some might get a wave that comes to you, please do send it in. And we can happily forward that on to Alice. So I'd like to thank you for your time today. It's been really great. And thank you to everyone for joining us. And we do have another talk next week, which can be on our website. You can sign up to with a BT Senior Engineer. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
Hope you have a good Friday. Bye.
Bye.